Welcome back to Monday. We're talking finances right now. A lot of Canadian consumers having trouble with their budget, with their money right now, and that can lead to debt problems. And for some advice on how to manage this, let's bring back our good friend Blair Manton from Sands & Associates. Welcome back, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, first of all, let's talk about what to do if you have a debt problem. The main thing is recognizing the warning signs.
Yeah, there's a bunch of warning signs we want to talk about just briefly this morning, Thor. The first one is kind of intuitive. Are you worried about your debts? Late at night, are you waking up? Are you thinking about it first thing in the morning? Being in debt is something that you generally don't put aside and think about just a few moments of every day. Oftentimes it consumes you and it starts to impact your health as well. So are you generally worried about your debts? It's a big warning sign. A second one that's a little bit more subtle is, are you only able to make your minimum payments? So if you're only paying the minimum amounts on the statements, you're not on a plan to get out of debt. You're on a plan to keep yourself in debt. Even $6,000 of debt could be a 40-year sentence of minimum payments. So if you're just making minimums or you're feeling really stressed, those are a couple really key warning signs.
And this can be stressful on relationships. I mean, we often half-jokingly talk about how part of your job is like being a marriage counselor when you're dealing with people that are steeped in debt, and it causes huge burden on the family as well, psychologically.
Yeah, so if you find your relationships are a little bit strange, debt could be a big challenge there. But one really important thing to keep in mind is really avoid the idea of enlarging your debt problem by starting to borrow from friends and families, or, getting somebody to co-sign a loan. In my experience, it's almost never a good idea to start to bring financial matters in between, emotional family relationships.
So obviously it's very intimidating. It can be overwhelming at times when you're juggling everything else going on. So the other point is that people need to know where to turn to for this kind of sound advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you take nothing else away from this morning's segment, remember the words licensed insolvency trustee. That's your best ally if you find yourself in debt. And the reason for that is a trustee is an independent, unbiased officer licensed by the government to help you get out of debt. There's great debt-free legislation in Canada. There's things called consumer proposals that people don't know a whole lot about, but you've got to know who to reach out to. So be careful. It makes sense to talk to your bank first if you just need a payment deferral, or maybe see a credit counselor if you know you can pay everything off in full, but you need a bit more time. But if it's a situation where you just know you're not going to be able to meet your obligations, there's no downside to seeing a trustee. It's a professional that you really need to be aware of.
And the way you're describing it, it seems really easy to seek out a licensed insolvency trustee. A lot of people don't. They wait too long, and that gets into crisis mode. So there's a big warning about that. Don't wait too long.
Absolutely. The earlier you act, the more options you do have available to you. And some people think, you need to get a referral from an accountant or a lawyer to see a trustee. Absolutely not. There's no fee for service. There's no referral required. You basically just contact a trustee. And at Sands & Associates, we're doing everything by video, by telephone these days with the pandemic. So whether it's a Skype call like this or a FaceTime or Zoom, we're still able to help our clients. And it costs nothing to get your advice to figure out what you can do to get out of debt.
And Blair, just as we close it out, we're in the summer right now, but as we look ahead to the fall, when the CERB payments eventually are halted, are we going to see a lot of problems with debt management from average Canadians?
We're anticipating a big spike in bankruptcy and proposal filings this fall, and they're at historic lows now because creditors have really backed off. People have a lot of money, or not a lot, but they're making their needs based on the CERB benefits. So when those come to an end, trustees do anticipate seeing a lot of volume. And one thing for people to keep in mind if they are receiving CERB benefits is it's fully taxable, but it hasn't been deducted. So you could easily owe a couple $1,000s next year if you haven't put any money away from taxes and you've just been collecting and spending the CERB because that's what you need. So we anticipate seeing a number of clients who are going to have some tax problems with CERB as well.
All right, and just anecdotally, I mean, this can be an embarrassing thing for people. I mean, they feel some shame about not being able to handle their finances. They may have made some risky investments or things like that. So what's your advice then for people that, the overcoming that hurdle in terms of just dealing with the debt overall?
I think people need to understand there's help out there and they're not alone. So every year, more than 100,000 people work with a trustee to do either a bankruptcy or a proposal in Canada. We're not here to judge. We're here to empathize and give you a better path to a debt-free tomorrow. And that's just better for everyone. You can be a productive member of society again when you're not so stressed about your debt that you just can't function.
Okay, awesome. And sands-trustee.com for more, correct?
That's right.
Okay, Blair, we really appreciate your time. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, you take care. We'll catch up with Blair down the road. That's our licensed insolvency trustee with some great advice on how to get out of debt, how to manage it, and how to recognize when you have it. We'll post this online for all of our viewers, and we'll be back with more BT after this.